Because everything there in the material world, we try and put a how and a why to it, and figure out how it functions. And how do you do that with consciousness, though? It's an intangible thing, right? That was just comparing it with the other forces that move in waves, electricity and magnetism. And so it was like, is consciousness like come into being as a side effect of the electromagnetic propulsion? Because the fact that there's magnetism and electricity interacting with each other, and the universe that somehow equals consciousness, like consciousness comes into being. Because it's really strange that anybody should have an individual consciousness, really. It all is one. That's kind of describe to like the Hermetic idea. If all is one, then there's only one consciousness too. So for us to think that the world is full of individual people, each one separate and unique in and of themselves, consciousness-wise, that doesn't seem very logical if it all is one. If it's not all one, we don't have a concept to really think about that. And I've heard that. I suppose all of philosophy and even science to a large degree is a way of trying to come to that place where you have a working model of how things work, which we'll never have by nature of being finite and limited. However, which comes, it says, does consciousness bring into being magnetism and electricity? Notice I'm not using the G word or the C word. Not that C word. Actually, they're both C words on that side. So anyway, yeah. That's a whole nother aspect of that's the worldly part of this idea, is the lies that were perpetuated about the world, and about human nature, and about pretty much everything. From the shape of the world to what our authorities say they're doing and not doing, and the reasons for doing or not doing it, and things that are attributed to human nature, even wars, for example. The notion that people a couple hundred years ago or 1,000 years ago would be in their little community where they've achieved some kind of homeostasis and they're surviving and getting by and doing okay and starting to grow and expand, as it obviously as it's been happening over time. And then they're like, oh, we're going to be short on stuff this winter. We're going to be short on our food. And well, look at that town over there 30 miles away, which was like a 3-day fucking walk, right? Let's go and attack them and steal all their stuff. And how's that going to benefit you? To expend all of your energy and resources going to trying to steal from your neighbor. It would make a lot more sense to work with them. And other than on very small scale, I don't think that was ever a thing where people would just get together and, we're low on resources, we're going to have a war for resources. Or the French and the English crossing the English Channel a couple hundred years ago to fight each other just for some resources. Oh yeah, we're going to fill up our ships and we're going to take them back over here and then we'll have their stuff. If it was food and livestock and just territory they were fighting for, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, it makes none. But it's just occurring to me. In the mud flood Tartarian type of view of the world, let's say they weren't fighting over resources. They were fighting over real infrastructure, like things that were existing there. Like, look at that castle, boy, that's awesome. We don't want those little frogs having that. So the English build themselves some ships and they sail across the stream. But then these little frogs are tougher than they look, and so they battle back. But then the probably like, we're not going to take this shit. And they fling their ships and they go over there. We're going to fuck England up, but England's on their home turf. They're like, yeah, bring it. And England's pretty tough in that regard. So anyway, they weren't battling over resources. They were battling over things that were there, probably. But that's really, I digress. Consciousness, does it come into being as a result of electricity and magnetism propagating? Or is consciousness the creator of the physical forces? Because it could be either way. The physical forces might come into being without any mind thinking. They're just a natural occurrence. It is because it is. There's no. That's an infinite concept to grasp. Is like something just is because it is, or is an idea that isn't because it isn't. I mean, it's really based on our ability to see and perceive it, whether we think something is or isn't. I think that's true about a lot of times physically even. Like, I noticed a lot of little things, sounds, sensations that move across my skin, and what, just things of being highly sensitive, and in all ways too, not just physically. And other people don't, and then sometimes I used to think it was like I thought everybody noticed the same types of things that I would notice, which you might call sometimes spiritual or just highly sensitive electrical and magnetic and whatever. But they don't. Which seems strange to me, because I can't not. You got to turn senses down. And of course, maybe a lot of people do, and that's why there's so much issue with drinking and the blues and stuff. On top of the old trails that are destroying everybody's brains, and their will to live is being eradicated. And oh, by the way, having fluoride in your system causes your body to absorb 3 times as much aluminum as it normally would from any aluminum it's exposed to. So think about that. God bless America, the greatest country in the history of the world. Now that changed quick, didn't it? I'm sorry. Man, that shit pisses me off. If it's in consciousness and is the creator of everything, then I think our consciousness should eradicate that shit. I mean, one thing that we should be able to have while we're alive is clean air and clean water. Then it's on us to find some clean food maybe, but not even air or water. Not even the electrical spectrum of light, just bombarded continuously, and everybody thinks this is okay. When was the referendum where everybody got together and had a vote about if it was okay to irradiate us with, everything from ELF waves, ULF waves, to high-frequency microwaves and gigahertz waves through our bodies all the time? When did we get together and decide that was cool, and that all the evidence was in place that was safe and a good thing to do, and that we needed it at all in the first place? Where was that at? Was that take place in Europe or something, and we missed the meeting, but they decided that it was cool? Yeah, there's no problem here. Everybody's on board. Everybody loves this tech, so let's put it everywhere at all times. With it, and the social implications of that are now we all have to live at a pace that keeps up with the instant communications that's been forced into our hands. Because 50 years ago, life was not nearly as it was not nearly as high speed. It was not nearly as in your face all the time. When you got done with your daily activities, you went home, and there wasn't anything following you, sending you messages, communicating with you from other places. You were kind of alone for a minute. But that's just not even a thing anymore. And if you go by the television commercials that I happen to catch when I'm walking by the television, or any of the media that I somehow makes it into my mind that I notice everybody's cool with that. Just like, oh yeah, we need to all be interconnected with your team all the time. Oh, you and your team. Do you even notice Google on their email? They've changed their splash screen as it opens your email. It used to say Gmail, I believe, and then it said Google Mail for a time, and now it says Google Workspace. So just your regular email it's no longer a place where you just check your mail. It's your workspace, because you need to be out working yourself to death every single day until you die, just to stay even, just to break middle ground. Does that seem like a world that a consciousness? Does your consciousness make that world? Because mine's not. But so many people think that that's perfectly normal. It's perfectly normal. Just like it's like if it's happening, it's perfectly normal, right? If you see planes spraying the sky, it's perfectly normal. If we have a war for resources, it's perfectly normal. Because, that's human nature to have wars for resources. That makes a lot of sense. And the terrorists are going to get us if we don't fight them over there. Come on, everybody, let's go have a war. I don't think that's ever happened in the history of mankind. The people have gathered together, went to their leader or the king or the ruler or the president or the senate or anybody, the warlord, maybe the warlord probably, but not any of these other things. Not any supposedly intelligent political system. And said, people have never went there, rallied around the castle and said, "King, we demand that we go to war. We're desperately low on resources. We need to have a war with our neighbors." That's never happened. It's talked about in history. That's said to be the state of mankind, warring for resources, fighting over land and food, and that happens in smaller examples, I'm sure. But as far as an entire nation, yeah, that don't happen. There's so many lies that we believe. We got to see through them. Number one, the world's not a globe. That's a biggie. It's beyond the scope to understand. I'm not going to try and talk about it here, but think about it. Tides. Here's the land. Here's the water. Here's the land. The land's going like this on the water. The water's not moving. The water don't move at all. When they say the earth doesn't move, that's not true. The earth bobs. The water doesn't move.